Hey, student success, you made it through the first week. We are in week 2, which runs from November 1st through the 7th. I'm going to start off, again, just kind of real quick reminder of the Start Here page. This is all your information for the very beginning of the semester, a lot of resources, documents you might need. And then in the lessons area, I'm going to plug the student services assignment. Please make sure you are registering for a workshop. Remember, the workshops are listed over here in My Stark State under academic support, student success workshops. So you can see all of the listings now that we're heading into November, all of the listings that'll be going on this month. So please make sure that you take a look at this now so that you can get registered, and you do not have to send me the confirmation of your registration. What you'll send me is once you've actually attended, the certificate is what you will upload. Okay, so I am recording this in week 1, so that's why you'll still see week 1 open. So I'm going to scroll down. We're going to be in week 2. This is going to cover just one chapter this week, so it's a little later than week 1, thank goodness. So here's just an overview of what you're doing this week. You'll see that there are just 2 assignments. There's a discussion forum, so just like week 1, you have to post your original response by Wednesday so that you can get your week 2 attendance points, and then respond to classmates in the in the discussion forum by Sunday, and then you have a chapter 4 assignment that is due Sunday as well. So let me go ahead and go through the lecture, if you will, for chapter 4. So I have the chapter 4 textbook link pulled up here. You are always welcome to go in and look at this more in depth, especially because it has these, assessments at the beginning to kind of take stock of where you are, where you want to go. But I'm going to, for now, just kind of go through this PowerPoint. So the main thing that's going on in this chapter is talking about listening, note-taking, and remembering. So that's what these slides go through. So chapter 4, it points to the fact that college is very different from high school. Hopefully you know that already, that especially if you've been out of high school for a little bit. But for those who are fresh out of high school, college has this different component to it. Time management is such an important piece of the college experience, especially with online classes. Managing your time as a college student is essential. And then just knowing about the learning cycle and how you can apply that to become more effective in your studying and in classroom time. So how do you prepare for class? And these can be kind of tweaked as needed for either online classes or attending like a physical class. So whenever you are ready to listen to like an online lecture or attend a physical class, are you mentally prepared? Do you kind of know your goals that you're going to get out of this class? So you look at the syllabus, you look at maybe the materials that are coming up. You think to yourself, how is this going to connect to the course overall? Physically, if you're physically getting ready for a class, whether it's just you're sitting at your computer at home or you're going to the classroom setting, have you done what you need to do to take care of yourself? Do you have all your materials? Are you on time, especially if you have to log in at a certain time or obviously be on campus at a certain time? Are you distraction free? I'll be honest, like my phone was just ringing a minute ago and I had to kind of look real quick over there to see it. So that was a distraction for me. So I should have put my phone a little bit away from me while I was recording. But are you making sure that you're not distracted? Do you have a space in your home that you can focus? When you're inside the classroom, do you have your phone tucked away? Are you not kind of tempted to get on the computer if you're in a lab on campus? So making sure that you are physically and mentally prepared. You also need to, again, whether you're listening to a lecture like right now or you're in a physical classroom, are you in the right space? Are you focused on what's going on right now? A couple of you had mentioned in your week 1 discussion post that maybe like moving to the front of the room can help you. And honestly, that's a small move, but it's so impactful. Moving in the front of the room, allowing you to have better eye contact with the instructor, things like that kind of almost force you to pay more attention because obviously you're right there in eye line. Eliminate distractions, making sure that you are, kind of on task or not multitasking. And then when you're listening to a lecture, listen for any time that an instructor maybe speeds up, they get excited about a topic, they write things on the board, they emphasize points. Also, see what's not being said. One of the things I always tell my reading students is make sure that you look at the syllabus so you know what's going on. So if you have a class next week, you read the chapter before the class. That way you are understanding, you're setting some prior knowledge. So if you have chapter 3 next week, you should read chapter 3 before you go into that classroom. Take notes on it. That way you know what it's about, you have prior knowledge, and then when you take notes in the classroom on the lecture itself, you don't feel like you have to write everything down. It also lets you know like what's not as important. Maybe the instructor doesn't cover certain things in the textbook. So you're going to go through and make sure you're taking the right notes for yourself, whether it's Cornell notes, bullet points, concept maps, whatever the case might be. Ask questions. Oh my goodness. Asking questions is so valuable as a college student. You're paying to be here. And so you want to make sure you ask the questions. Even if you feel like it's a silly question, odds are someone else in that room has a similar question. And then some people record lectures and you just make sure that's okay with the instructor, but generally they're okay with that depending on the subject matter. So that might be helpful for listening and note-taking purposes. So our chapter also talks about, what happens if your instructor speaks too quickly? What happens if your instructor has an accent or if they speak too softly? So it kind of gives you some advice if you ever have that type of situation occur. Also in this chapter, it talks about note-taking. And so you're going to see some different types of like note-taking models, and I'll kind of show you in a minute. But note-taking is important. I don't know if any of you were able to take that learning style survey that I kind of just talked about real briefly in the first video, but it lets you know if you are a read-write learner. If you're a read-write learner, note-taking is so important. If you're an audio learner, note-taking might just supplement your strength. So depending on the type of learning style you do, you may or may not be taking a lot of notes. Regardless, note-taking is important. It helps you create a study guide. It helps you remember ideas. It helps you connect. It helps to kind of make sure that you have something to rely on if your listening does fail. So it's kind of like that backup. So there are different types of note-taking. You can see there's a little table here. But again, in chapter 4 itself, just because kind of hard to see on that slideshow, you'll see it's a little bit larger here, this table right here, and then it goes into more detail, like every single type of like note-taking method that they mention right in here. So listing, outlines, concept maps, or Cornell methods are the most commonly used note-taking applications. So this will go through and like show you what each of them look like, as well as kind of like the pros and maybe the cons of using these. There's a concept map if you're more of a visual person. My personal favorite is Cornell Notes because I think it helps you set up like a nice study guide. It's very structured. So that goes through some of those. So I think that's a really helpful section right there to kind of look at to see what each of those look like. Some other note-taking tips, obviously be prepared. You can't take notes if you don't have the physical materials with you. Make sure you label. I learned that early on as a college student when I was taking my undergrad courses, and I took like 4 or 5 classes my first semester, which was a wake-up call. And I had like a 4 or 5 subject notebook. I had to learn very quickly. I have to label number and date all of my pages, every single page. Every time I went to class, I had to label that because you can kind of get lost in your notes sometimes. Try not to capture everything. That's impossible to write down everything your instructor says. But that's when you listen for clues. Like, is the instructor saying anything quickly? Are they emphasizing? Are they getting excited? Are they writing on the board? Maybe come up with a shorthand for yourself so that you're not having to do a ton of writing. Find the method that works for you, maybe use symbols, and then review your notes as soon as possible. But that way if you miss something or if you need to fill in kind of the gap maybe, and it also serves as a review. Now, what if you miss class? Some of these are kind of common sense, but it's really important because I still have students who don't do these things. If you miss class, let your instructor know, first of all, like, hey, I'm not feeling well, I can't come to class. And they might allow you to kind of like, hey, here's what you can do. Maybe you can listen to a syllabus or something if they post those kind of things, or a podcast or a recording. If they post those things, check the syllabus, borrow notes, anything like that. And then the last section of our text in this chapter talks about memory, how to save information from maybe short-term to long-term. And these are some different tips, repeating information, getting rid of distractions, pictures. There's something called picture superiority effect, where you are able to associate, it says that if you can associate pictures with concepts, it's one of the most effective memory strategies. So that's really important and helpful in the memory process. Try to make a deliberate decision to remember information, link information to your everyday life, create examples. All of those things are going to help get information into your memory. And there's a whole section again in our chapter talking about memory and strategies, and it goes through kind of how memory works. We encode it, we store it, we retrieve it, and they kind of connect it to like a computer analogy. So here are the tips again. Chunking is really important, and they give the example of like we tend to chunk phone numbers. You can do the same thing with data or information. Eliminate distractions. I know I mentioned this, but sometimes I find myself, even if I'm trying to study or I'm trying to work on something, and I constantly am thinking about, oh my gosh, what are my kids doing right now? Or I really need to go do the laundry. I'm not going to remember the information I'm working on because I'm distracted. And so really making sure that you're focused is a big part of the memory, because you can use all the tips in the book that you can, but if you're distracted, you're not going to remember what you just were doing. So kind of look through there to try to get some information. There's a really quick like little memory strategy, just kind of fun to try. Mnemonics. I love mnemonic devices like acronyms and things like that. Roy G. Biv, PEMDAS, those are really famous ones. Acrostics, rhyming. I know I like to make up songs and jingles and things like that. That helps me. So I encourage you to spend some time and look through chapter 4, particularly anything that you need a lot of assistance with. If you are struggling with note-taking, memory, or listening, really pay attention to those sections. Okay, so now we're going to talk about your assignments. I'm going to go in here and you're going to see how well do you listen. You'll see there's two things. You're going to first take the survey, and it's going to open up into one of these, kind of like your scavenger hunt from last week, and it's going to talk to you. So I'm going to kind of turn that down, even though my sound is down right here. So you are going to put your name in there, hit continue. You're going to take this survey. I am not going to see your results. So take the survey, get your results. Again, I will not see your results. Based on what you get in the survey, here's the discussion forum. You're going to tell me 3 things. How did you do on the survey? Did the results surprise you? And what do you plan to do to improve? Excuse me. So again, the survey does not appear in the gradebook anywhere. It is this discussion forum that you use for the survey. So that means you have to do the survey by Wednesday for your attendance as well, since you have to use it for the discussion forum. So your original response is due Wednesday. Again, make sure you answer all 3 questions and then go back in and respond to 2 classmates inside the forum, like a meaningful response, not just yes, no, good job, bad job, whatever. By Sunday as well, respond to 2 classmates. And then you have a chapter 4 assignment. This is due by Sunday. So what you're going to do, you can see there's a Word document. Actually, I think it actually opens up. Oh no, it's Word. Sometimes the coordinator puts it in as a PDF. All right, so this is a Word document. So you're going to pull it up. If Google Docs works for you, that's fine. I will tell you, sometimes Mac users have a hard time with these assignments. So just kind of be mindful of that. If you're a Mac user and you submit it, you always check to make sure that when you submit it, that it goes through and it's able to be read. I will always also let you know if it comes through and I can't see it, I'll send you a message. Anyway, so once you're in here, you're going to see the 3 main concepts that this chapter focused on: listening, note-taking, memory. You're going to tell me 2 things you're going to do to improve your listening, 2 things you're going to do to improve your note-taking, and 2 things that you're going to do to improve your memory. So you can go back and you can revisit your textbook. You can look at your tips from the PowerPoint, whatever you need to do, and tell me 2 things you're going to do in each of these categories to just make a little bit of improvement on each of these areas. When are you going to do that? Are you going to do that next week in class? Are you going to do that the next time you listen to a lecture? Are you going to do that next semester? Whenever. And then how are you going to know that your listening has improved, or that your note-taking has improved, or your memory has improved? Okay, so that's what you're doing for the chapter 4 assignment. 2 actions for each area of our chapter, when you're going to take those actions, and how will you know you've made improvements. So you're going to make sure you save this document to your desktop, to a file somewhere. click in here. You're going to browse your files. You're going to find it. So maybe you saved it to your desktop, whatever it might be. I'm going to click on whatever file you saved it under. Hit open. And it's not going to let me submit it because I'm not a student, but you'll open it. It'll like, here it is. And you'll hit submit. Okay, so like this is the first time you're doing like a Dropbox attachment. So that's what you'll do for Dropboxes. Okay, so you'll click in. You'll browse, you'll find where you have it, and then hit submit, okay? And again, if you, when I go in and if the file for whatever reason is not able to be opened, I'll send you a message inside Blackboard Messages saying, hey, can we try this again? Or you need to send me a screenshot, something like that. All right, so as a quick reminder, week 2, make sure you go over chapter 4 materials. Complete the How Well Do You Listen discussion board by Wednesday for week 2 attendance, and complete your chapter 4 assignment by Sunday. If you have any questions, reach out and let me know. Have a great week. Bye.